For the past few months, the conversation around Wolfenstein 3 has shifted dramatically. After nearly a decade of nothing but silence since the brilliant but unfinished modern trilogy that began with Wolfenstein: The New Order, continuing through Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, that conversation has changed from "is it happening?" to "when will we finally see it?" And more importantly, more to the point, what will it even be? For a franchise steeped in alternate history, brutal action, and defiance against authoritarian nightmares, the anticipation for a third mainline entry has never been more focused, or rather more complex. When Machine Games released The New Colossus in 2017, it was pretty clear that the journey of William was far from complete. The story established a deeply personal, visceral narrative about resistance and sacrifice in a world where the Nazis won World War II. And yet, despite the developing hinting for years that they have planned a three-part arc, the final chapter never really emerged until now. Instead, the franchise released Wolfenstein Youngblood, which was a spin-off that took William's twin daughters into more co-op gameplay, but wasn't really considered the true conclusion of the reboot trilogy. It was fun, for sure, but for many fans it was never the narrative street-level closure they wanted. Now, all signs suggest that Machine Games is finally returning to the heart of the story. The most concrete information of now come from recent leaks and industry reporting a picture of a project moving beyond idle chatter and into active production. Reports surfaced that a casting call linked to a project codenamed Valkyrie has gone out, suggesting some serious work is on the way behind the scenes. Performance capture, a key part of bringing emotional, character-driven stories to life, is reportedly scheduled to begin as early as April 2026, with sessions planned throughout the year into 2027. If accurate, that implies the game isn't just being talked about, it's being made. Not to mention, this timeline doesn't just hint at development, it screams it. Casting directors and performance directors attached to the project are professionals who worked on previous games, suggesting continuity and creative leadership rather than a side project. One of the biggest rumors emerging from those leaks concerns a narrative focus. Rather than simply being Wolfenstein Part 3, the leaked documents hint at a story built around a new character named Sofia, apparently a Ukrainian orphan aged between 8 to 11. Now, alongside her dog, Ralph, reportedly going to form a bond with BJ, bringing an emotional dimension to the story that rivals the depth of the first two games. Well, if this information is accurate, it signals a meaningful shift in tone. The Wolfenstein series has always married intense, violent combat with serious storytelling. But the inclusion of a young companion figure and the trauma of war she carries could really push the narrative into something even more potent. Fans have already compared this possible dynamic to titles like The Last of Us, where survival isn't just about guns and bullets, but about connection and trust. And that's exactly what would make this third chapter potentially unforgettable. I mean, hell yeah, we want high-octane gunplay and Nazi-slaying spectacle. That's practically Wolfenstein DNA. But the idea of BJ as protector adds a layer of humanity that hasn't been fully explored before. We could see the series evolve from a solo revenge tale into something far deeper and more character-driven. However, despite all the buzz, it's important to remember that Wolfenstein 3 was just announced. Everything we're piecing together comes from leaks, calls, industry insiders rather than formal press releases, so patience and skepticism go hand in hand. If performance capture really starts in 2026 and continues in 2027, it would be reasonable to expect a release window somewhere around 2028 or even later than 2028. Depending on how development goes. That fits with historical development timelines for high-quality AAA single-player games that rely on motion capture and cinematic storytelling. That's basically it. In a gaming landscape where franchises often shift between studios or spin-offs into multiplayer experiments, the idea that Machine Games is taking its time to craft a meaningful continuation is very encouraging. In fact, the studio head himself has hinted they have a story to tell. and want to finish what they started with the modern Wolfenstein trilogy. On another hand, the timing of these rumored developments also interact with another piece of Wolfenstein news: a TV adaptation in development at Amazon Prime Video. That project, while separate, however, suggests a broader strategy to bring this alternative history universe to new audiences beyond video games. If the game and the series are developed to align or complement one another, it could represent one of the most ambitious cross-media launches ever seen from a classic shooter franchise. And if Wolfenstein 3 incorporates the emotional depth hinted at the leaks, that TV adaptation might not even feel like a spin-off, but part of a coordinated world-building effort. Community reactions right now to these rumors has been largely positive, especially among players who felt the second game didn't fully resolve BJ's arc. On forums and social media, many fans have expressed relief that Machine Games appears ready to return to its narrative thread after several years of just watching the franchise take detours. There's also excitement about what the gameplay could bring. Wolfenstein titles have historically tied signature shooter mechanics with over-the-top set pieces and visceral feedback. With modern technology and storytelling ambitions combined, the third entry could potentially learn from both its own past and from genre standouts that balance action with emotion. At the same time, there's also cautious optimism. Rumors have inspired hopes before. Fans' expectations sometimes outpace reality, but the consistency of the leaks and the involvement of core machine game talent makes this feel more credible than most whispers in gaming right now. Wolfenstein isn't just another shooter franchise by any means. It was among the games that helped redefine single-player narrative shooters in the modern era. The New Order and the new Colossus were praised not just for slick gunplay, but for their unapologetically bold storytelling, memorable characters, and alternative history world building that felt distinct and cinematic. After years of uncertainty, seeing all these elements potentially converge, classic protagonists returning, emotional storytelling potential, and modern production values is the kind of moment fans dream about. Wolfenstein 3, if it's truly happening, isn't just another release, it is the conclusion to a trilogy that helped reshape what story-driven shooters can be. It is an opportunity to bring BJ's journey home, to answer questions, and to deliver one of the most anticipated sequels in a beloved franchise. We don't really have much to go by right now, but if the leaks, casting calls, and industry whispers are real, that Machine Games is quietly preparing something extraordinary, a return not to just war, but to the emotional heart of one of gaming's most iconic heroes.